Back here now on the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast to talk about a little bit more about Drake Maye and how he will be starting this upcoming Sunday against the Houston Texans. But quickly before I jump into that, I do have the inactive list for tonight's game that is set to kick off in just about an hour or so. For the San Francisco 49ers, some big misses. There's not going to be, obviously, Jake Moody because of that high ankle sprain. There's not going to be any of Charvarius Ward either. He is listed as inactive, and that's a big miss for the 49ers, obviously dealing with DK, with Jackson Smith and Jigba, and the passing game overall for the Seahawks. That's going to be a big miss. And also for the Seahawks, nothing too new. Reek Woolen, their cornerback's not going to play. Byron Murphy's also not going to play. And that's pretty much it for the big names from that team as well. Other than that, I don't think, or actually Julian Love is not inactive, so he is going to be playing in there as well. So the Seahawks and the 49ers missing some key players in that secondary. How that sways it, I'll leave that up for you guys to decide. But getting back to Drake Maye, we already talked about my feelings on this yesterday, and the moment is finally here, right, for New England and Drake Maye. As we talked about yesterday, he's going to be the starter against the Houston Texans. And while, again, I want to stress that I'm not happy about it, it's going to happen anyway. And why it's so important that this happens now, outside of the fact that I believe it's too early and the offensive line issues and all that sort of stuff that we talked about, it's because of the fact that when you make this move, when you draft the guy potentially for your organization, the idea of going back on it or having it backfire and having it all sort of blow up in your face, you really can't go back on this decision now that you've made it, right? Once he steps out on that field and he goes through that first play, that first drive, unless he gets hurt or something like that, it looks extraordinarily bad on the Patriots if somehow they revert back to Jacoby Brissett. And, what is that going to do for Drake Maye? I know that's like existential crisis kind of thinking, right? With Drake Maye, and he hasn't even stepped foot on the field yet. But I feel like it's important to mention that because at least you definitely shouldn't, because someone's going out there and they're gonna pay the price at least because of the idea that you can't go back on this decision. And that's why I bring it up, because of the idea that the action of going back to Jacoby Brissett potentially, if Drake Maye, this whole experiment, maybe you did start him so early, if it doesn't pan out, something's going to have to happen as a circumstance for not planning this out properly. And what I mean by that is just looking at another similar situation back in 2020. You look at the Miami Dolphins, you look at Tua Tagovailoa in that game, and at some point in that year, they started Tua. They started the rookie quarterback. But obviously, it went horribly wrong. Tua didn't play great. They benched him again for Ryan Fitzpatrick. And that whole switching throughout the season, it didn't look good on them at all. And not only that, afterwards, it was Brian Flores who ended up paying for it by the Dolphins firing him, obviously. So a decision like this is so important. Why I brought it up is because something like that could happen if this does backfire. And you look at the first-year head coach, Jerod Mayo, you think that his job's going to be secure if they happen to have to do that at some point this year. And in saying that, it goes back to the point that they're 1-4 and they're supposed to be bad anyway, but still, you're kind of messing with the with your long-term planning here with the future, right? Drake Maye, if you start him too early, it could shake up everything on how you had it planned out going 2 to 3 years down the line. This is your guy. This is the guy you picked at number 3 in the draft. It's not each and every year, ideally, that you're picking top 4, top 5, right? So when you do have the chance to do that, don't mess it up. And that's why it's so important, again, that I feel like still it's a bit early to start Drake Maye, but the Patriots now have to sort of die on that sword. And because of that, Jerod Mayo spoke on the decision to start Drake Maye and sort of what went into it. And this is what he had to say on your screen. He said, based on last week's game, it just wasn't good enough. Sunday against the Miami Dolphins, I thought we played well enough defensively and on special teams to win the football game. And there's that bit of frustration, I'm sure, I'm not the only one that can notice it. Mentioning how you did everything on defense, basically, you did everything on special teams, and the only other side of the ball didn't perform, essentially, is what he's saying. So the quarterback is the main reason for that more often than not. So the frustration has kind of gotten to a point where you can't continue on like this, and they decided to go to Drake Maye now. And it makes sense, right? It's logical, but I go back to the reason I gave yesterday where I like the urgency and I like the desire to win, but I feel like you could go a bit too far because, again, the Patriots were not supposed to be like 500 or 3-2 or like a Cardinals team maybe that has something going for them, but they're still not there yet. I feel like the Patriots are even further back from that, where they still need a lot of pieces to be where the Arizona Cardinals are at this point in time in their new project that they're trying to build, right? The Patriots are very new. This is their first year with a new head coach and really starting this new era after Bill Belichick. So they're probably right where they're supposed to be. So this idea that, something has to change now, we can't be 1-4, like, it's not a surprise to anybody, honestly. If you talk to anybody and you said that the Patriots are 1-4, no one's gonna like ask you again, right? That seems about right where they thought the Patriots should be. Now, if you ask them about the Bengals being 1-4, then you get a reaction, right? Because that wasn't supposed to happen. But in this situation, it's logical. But again, you're dealing with a rookie quarterback, and you're probably where you should have been anyway. So, I kind of understand it, but still, I have my pushback on it. And Jerod Mayo also mentioned how Drake Maye's athletic ability will allow them to do some different things on offense, which is going to be better for them. A Patriots insider, Phil Perry, also emphasized that offensive coordinator Alex Van Pelt believes it's vital, in his words, to scheme around his personnel. So, based on that, Phil Perry reported that we should expect to see more shotgun formations, more move the pocket sort of concepts that are going to help out Drake Maye, and where Jacoby Brissett obviously wasn't moving a lot, right? Because he is a veteran and he's not so mobile, obviously. So that is something to, again, get excited about, see something different, and maybe just try out something else. But it's going to be tough against this Houston Texans defense, right? It's all contextualized around who you're playing and what the matchups are, obviously, in that week. If this was their plan against the Miami Dolphins, I would ease up a little bit, right? But because we're talking about the Texans, and I know they're banged up and whatnot, but still, this is one of the top competing AFC Conference Championship type of games where, or type of teams rather, where, this team is where everybody wants to end up with a rookie or with a young quarterback now, getting all the pieces around him, right? The Patriots are nowhere near that, and the Texans are a good team. They have a great defense with Danielle Hunter, Will Anderson, Derek Stingley on that side of the ball, and a lot of great players just overall on that team. So to start Drake Maye not playing any action so far in the regular season against this team, it seems a bit panicked at this point. So they couldn't have held off one more week. That probably would have been a lot better. But, it's going to happen anyway now. And Drake Maye also had something to say on his approach, let's say, to this game, and how he's approaching and how he views it as well. Because Drake Maye also said in his press conference that, and then from there, don't try to hunt off-platform, off-play, off-schedule throws. I think just kind of feel it out and go play football. I think the biggest thing sometimes is you try to get outside of the pocket when you don't need to, and little things like that. So I like what he said there. It relates back to the point about Alex Van Pelt and trying to move the pocket and trying to get him a little bit more mobile. I like what Drake Maye say, not trying to overdo it, right? Because he wants to trust the guys around him. He wants to trust his offensive line, his skill players. That's also what he said in a separate statement that I didn't get a chance to put up here. But anyway, I like the sentiment around Drake Maye. It seems like he is willing to take what the defense gives him. Everybody says that. And, it's a good approach to have, right? It doesn't seem like he's too amped up about it, or it doesn't sound like he's trying to, head into this Houston Texans game like with some crazy, unrealistic expectations, right? He said that it's just kind of like a feel it out process, right? He knows that it's new for him. He knows that it's not going to be perfect, and that's the biggest message to stress in this moment, that he is going to mess up. No fans, haters of the Patriots should go into that game expecting there to be a couple mistakes and for this not to look like a drastic change just because Drake Maye is in there, right? You're going from a veteran who might not have it all physically anymore to a young kid who has never played in the NFL yet. So there's going to be a lot of hiccups with this move, and you've made this decision now, so there's no going back on it, like I mentioned before. And it's more around the situation with the Patriots, right? It's not all on Drake Maye because the offensive line, we have the problems with that. The skill position players, outside of Douglas and Kendrick Bourne potentially, aren't fantastic, and the defense is solid, but it's not a complete puzzle yet. And Drake Maye's certainly is not at a spot where he is the final piece of that puzzle. He needs to grow. He needs to be knocked down and get back up, obviously. So the expectations, people should limit them with Drake Maye going into this game and give the kid some time, because I feel like he has the potential to certainly be something for them, but you don't want to mess it up by having these crazy expectations on him, and then every other day he's hearing how he's a bust or he's not good, and everybody giving up on him before this situation obviously gets better. So that's what I wanted to say on Drake Maye, what the situation is like now. We got some insight from Jerod Mayo and Drake Maye as well, so all that's left to do is just watch how he does on Sunday. That should be a more of an interesting reason why we tune into that game, so I'll certainly be watching. But talking about these games coming up this weekend, we have to get to our game picks like we do each and every week, and talking about who we think is going to win from Sunday's slate of games. We got the first part today, and we're going to do the second part tomorrow like we typically do. So stick around and find out who I have winning these Week 6 matchups when we return after this quick break.